And I want to say hello to everyone again that is going to talk about truth from fiction, about the history of the world. Now, we're going to encourage nonprofits like we do now, and nonprofits fill in a lot of work what governments are responsible for doing. So, if there's enough nonprofits to take the slack away from the government, then the government can do other things that they would like to do, but under normal conditions would not be able to afford to. The judiciary should have a website where they can put on there any of the rules that anyone wants to put on the website and ask what would be the result at trial. And they would get a printout of what that result is going to be. And anytime a case goes to court under those facts, that rule is always the result. There is never any deviation. We want to make sure the citizens know the rules ahead of time. They have an opportunity, if they're in doubt, to ask, and don't mean ask for calling a lawyer to get his opinion, because we don't care what his opinion is. We care what the law says and what we have a right to do and what we don't have a right to do. That's what makes us free. And the only thing we're not free to do is what not any other human being is free to do as well. If anyone else is free to do it, we are free to do it the same as them. That's why one citizen has no freedoms over another citizen. And I did go into a lengthy idea about having control and benefit. If you have control, and I'm not meaning ownership, just able to control it any way that you have to control. If you have control and benefit, you have a responsibility. If you end up having more than 100 times than the average citizen, and that came about as something that you had control and benefit over, it immediately investigating unit that the executive branch of government has to have in place to look to make sure you didn't steal from someone. And a separate unit that's more sophisticated, looking at it again if it goes to 1,000 times over. Another one if it's 10,000 times over. Another one if it's 100 times, 1,000 times over. And the next one is 1,000,000 times. The difference between 1,000,000 times, if you've had control and benefit and had 1,000,000 times over, you have by nature stolen from someone else. So you need to give back what you have stolen and pay for your attempt to get away with the fraud you've committed, because no human being has a right under capitalism to have 1,000,000 times more than the average of any other human being. That takes into consideration all the high IQ, all the low IQ human beings, and puts them to the average. And I would be getting pretty close to that system. So if I was not able to have something and you had 1,000,000 times more than I did, you probably have stolen from someone. So you need to give it back to them. So if you institute the rules that I have said, that there are enforcement rules that will make sure that people don't have control and benefit. And as I said before, we have to reiterate, when you're elected official, you do not get benefit from government. Your businesses get assigned to someone else that's handling the business while you're a public servant. You are busy now serving the people. As you serve the people, you get zero extra benefit. So you don't get to benefit in addition to what you've already had. Now, we are going to compensate you for taking on the position, because we don't want only people running for office that have to support themselves while that's going on. But we don't want to support you in a lifestyle that maybe even kept you where you were at the time. You may have to cut back on your lifestyle to be a public official. But that is your choice. But we want enough people to be able to run for office so that we keep it a free and just society that is not a slave society in any way, shape, or form, and that no human being in the United States of America has advantages that any other human being does not have. And that has to be consistent at all times, at all places, in every situation. And it will be that a lot of people will get involved because there will be some conflict along the way. But as I started to point out, the Philistines may have been in power and they had the benefit of the trading empire that the world enjoyed from 9000 BC to 1550 BC, when 99% of them were taken off the face of the earth with the volcano eruption and the tidal wave and the climate change. Then it changed everything. And that changed the attitude, the way people acted. And so things have to always be taken into consideration. But when those people changed their attitude, some of them were still left, and the Egyptians were kind enough to give their trading partners 5 cities up on the coast of the Levant on land that was owned by Egypt. At least they had a buffer zone between them and the Hittites, and that served another benefit of having the Philistines there. They figured the Philistines could stand up for themselves, and therefore they didn't have to worry about the Hittites performing the treaty that they would not attack the Egyptians. The Egyptians had a backup plan to protect themselves. Now, as it worked out, the Egyptians had another backup plan they were unaware of, and that was with the volcano eruption and the change in climate over Europe and the necessity for people to immigrate from Europe to south of the Mediterranean to be able to survive. Enough people migrated that it created a phenomenon referred to as the boat people. And the boat people make the problem worse. Now, they didn't cause the problem, they were part of the problem. But when people are having a problem, the things they do sometime create problems for other people. That's why we're required to help people out of their problems. And when we get into religion, that's what religion does. It encourages people not only to follow the law, to go far beyond what the law tells us we have to do. We don't want anyone breaking the law. If no one breaks the law, no one will ever be adversely hurt. No one will ever have to go to jail, and no one will ever have to do anything against his interests. However, if you act like an animal and you break the law, and particularly if you rape women and kill people, you are an animal and you need to be treated one. You need to be put in a cage and you need to be worked 40 hours a week. And that's what you need to do for the rest of your life. And you get no benefit out of what you're earning. That goes to the cost of keeping you in prison. And the rest of it goes to the people you injured. And if the woman you raped isn't around or she moved on, then there will be a government program that money can be drawn from that will be only available to women who are trying to recover from being raped from men that they did not want on top of them. And so therefore, there will be a lot of things that we don't have in government now. But as we follow the truth, and as I said before, truth is a concept, but I look at God as being truth and love. And truth means that things that happen are things that God knew was going to happen and God approved of, or God had the power to change to make sure they didn't happen. And since God is going to allow those to happen, He's allowing that happen so that we as Homo sapiens learn how to fix it. He has us here to fix a lot of things. Otherwise, He would not have the world here for 3 5.5 billion years or more, and only have Homo sapiens here for 100,000 years, or up to maybe less than 500,000 years, 500,000 years. We found no Homo sapien on the face of the earth older than 500,000 years. So he's made an earth that has been available to us for maybe as much as 300,000 years. Now, will that happen forever? Of course not. We know it's going to come to an end. But by the time it does, if we do God's will, on thousands of planets by then. We won't have to worry about one or two places to go. There will be thousands of places to go. And it's our job to get out there and find those places so that regardless of whether this earth can continue to support us, we don't know what viruses, we don't know what climate change, we don't know what God has planned for the earth. But we do know that when the sun novas, and it means by it burns out or implodes or whatever, it creates a force that destroys all the planets around it. Now, we know that God has it built in that certain things are going to happen. Does it mean the things can't happen next month? Well, that's God to know, not for us to. If we learn it and we know it and we've gotten off, good for us. And if we didn't, we're going by the way of 99% of the Philistines. But it's not my belief that God created us so he could destroy us. It's his desire that we obey his laws, and his laws are to learn the truth and to obey the truth and to do the truth. And that's why things that have happened, I consider part of the truth because they are history. They have happened. And if they're bad things that have happened, they're happened because bad people caused them to happen. We need to understand those as well and make international laws that prevent those things from happening as well. And I've said before, we have responsibilities not only to the United States of America, but we can't go out talking to other people until we clean up our own act. And there's a saying, physician, heal thyself first. It's the same principle I'm talking about. We can't go out telling the rest of the world, you can be free, you cannot have these problems, unless we don't have them either. And since we still have them, this should be a blueprint to any other nation that's willing to get behind God, jump on the truth, understand God's will for Homo sapiens, and do what God wants us to do, which is continue to work for each other, help out each other. Jesus Christ told me, do for other people as you would want them to do to you. Not do other people as they do to you. That's what most of us use as an excuse. Well, they did it to me, so I have a right to do it to them. No, what you want to do is to treat other people the way that you want to be treated so that they will learn to treat you that way. Now, if you become a free society, the government will have laws that most of them will not be able to treat you the way they're doing it now. A lot of people and a lot of women are being treated ways they should not be treated. But that's the world we live in. But once God is on board and God's will is done on earth, then no woman on earth will be treated the way that men want to treat them, that they don't want to be treated. Every woman will be free and be treated the way they want to be treated, not the way the guys want to treat them. And with that being said, then we have a responsibility to make sure there are enforcement laws in the world so that if people transgress once or twice of these world ways, kill one or two people, that we let them know and we send an enforcement agency out that makes it clear to them they are not free and do not have the control and ability to kill anyone. And they don't have the control and ability to steal from others. If they have more than they should have, it gets taken away from them. So we want people that have control and benefit at the same time, be looked at on a regular basis. And if they have stolen, no one has to accuse them of it. The enforcement agency that's designed to look at it will see that they have transgressed. And it's their responsibility to move up on the transgression, make them clear what the transgression is. You've already used up your second one. If you do another one, you will be punished for it. And then there has to be a form of punishment that they suffer for transgressing more than the twice. Does that mean everyone gets 2 passes? Of course not. No one has to be told you can't kill another human being. Are some people going to get a pass on it? Well, they might. If it is in an auto accident where maybe multiple people are a risk, then maybe they get a pass. It was a justified homicide because the other side was at least at fault as much as they were. If they were more than 50% at fault, then maybe they need to suffer a little anyway, even if it was their first transgression. Maybe a year of incarceration will let them know this is serious enough that if you transgress it once, you will be punished. Because I don't care who you are, if you've killed your third person, you need to be in a cage. There is no doubt about that. So when Putin sent his army into the Ukraine and 3 people died, it was time to put Putin in a cage. Every person on the planet has a duty to see that he gets put in the cage. Until he does, nothing can move forward. All citizens are elected. There are no professional politicians. No one is in the same office more than 2 terms. No term is ever more than 6 years. 50% of anyone's life is ever in public service. If he's going to take a job that's going to put him in that, he's not eligible to run for that office. So people who are in office are people that have spent more than half of their life not in public service. So they should have learned all of the rules. And when they get into government, they cannot have control and benefit from anything, not even one thing. Now, when you're in private enterprise, you don't necessarily get looked at until you have 100 times what the average person has. And if you do, you're going to be looked at, because we need to look at management over employees to make sure they're not taking what doesn't belong to them. And when I get back into religion, I will talk about a lot of these things, because these aren't things the government should be involved in. Government is more of a nature of absolutes. If you transgress the absolute, government needs to jump in and fix it. And even if it's something that they don't fix, they need to work on the individual to make sure that he is unlikely to do it again. If it happens the second time, he will be punished on his third time. And that needs to be made very clear to him as well. If people don't learn, they need to be punished until they do learn. If they end up spending their whole life in jail because they never learn, that's the life they get to have. And having this idea of having sexual relations when you're in jail is not acceptable. If you have a desire and you get punished and you get put in jail till what they say the highlight of natural inclinations are, and you're beyond that and don't have as much interest in it anymore, you can be put in jail and deprived of it for the rest of your life if that's what's required. If you're allowed to have some without it disrupting the government, and you're able to figure out a way that you're allowed to work it off and use some of your efforts by working overtime in jail in order to have some of these extra benefits, then you should be able to do that as well. We want to give every citizen everything he can possibly have, even if he's a bad citizen. We want all citizens to flourish the best they can. And we want most citizens to flourish because they obey the laws, They respect all other people. They haven't done things to damage other people, and they've moved forward to enrich the society and the world without damaging other people. They have control, they have benefit, and they haven't damaged anyone. That's what we're looking for. In Passion, what I want to inspire people to look at is consider to having a thought about what is right opposed to what is wrong. Emphasizing the characteristics of what I put in government 5 for the government to run efficient. But for that to happen, a majority or at least a very strong minority group of people have to be thinking the same thing before it becomes a reality. So I want to encourage the people to think about these things, adopt them as part of their thinking, start believing that your thoughts about making these a reality will make it to actually become true and be part of the society. But we have to be thinking it before we can rely on it and before we will actually act on it. So I want to encourage everyone to start thinking this way so that we can accomplish the end result. And the things that I'm going to be telling you or trying to convince you of are things that have already happened in history, and I will refer to those that show us what has happened. And if we duplicate what those individuals did, I believe that we will have the same type of society. Thank you for coming and listening to Passion 6. I'm going to end this now, and this will be the end of Passion 6.